Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Indie Zone podcast. My name is Kathy. Tomorrow is the start of a new week, Monday, February 9th. The first possible date that anything new could be appearing on the court docket in the closed case of Idaho versus Kohberger. And a quick look at that docket reveals that not a single item that Judge Stephen J. Hippler ordered to be unsealed to the public, dozens upon dozens of them, as he did in his court order of December 18th, 2025, have been published on the court docket. Everything is still under seal, despite the fact that that order was rendered almost 2 months ago, directing dozens upon dozens of documents from January, February, and March of 2025 that are sealed from the public to be placed onto the court docket. And if we look at the Ada County Court's website, there still is the same notification there. State versus Brian C. Kohberger. This case is now closed. The court is in the process of reviewing sealed orders and documents. This will be a lengthy process, and all unsealed documents will be released as they are approved. As they are approved seems to strongly suggest that these documents approved in December of 2025 should have been released at the time of their approval on the 18th of December. And yet here we are almost 2 months later, and not a single document approved for release is on that court docket. Why hasn't documentation ordered to be released been released as they are approved? And moreover, why was this case sealed to the extent that it was to begin with? For the more than 2.5 years that it was prosecuted, there were orders upon orders upon orders sealing documents, including the evidence that the state stated that it had to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt that one person and one person only, that being Mr. Kohberger, was responsible for the events at 1122 King Road. There was nothing released before Mr. Kohberger's arrest, as other law enforcement agencies do. They will release items to the public to give an update as to where matters stand during the investigation after a crime happens, such as the 911 call or a transcript of it. Neither of those items were released by the Moscow Police Department. If there's a car involved, a getaway car, for example, a photograph, a video, image of the actual vehicle will be released. Moscow Police Department also refused to do that. When they put out the BOLO, the Be on the Lookout, they had 2 stand-ins for what they called Suspect Vehicle 1, one with a sunroof. There was nothing released about the identification that a witness supposedly had of the suspect. And then once the case went into litigation, all of these items under seal, on top of a gag order that was put in place day 4 of the case, and then all the hearings that happened behind closed doors. And here we are now, 7.5 months after Mr. Kohberger was placed in the state prison where he is serving out his term. And this case still remains largely sealed from the public, with more documentation being sealed even post-closure in January of 2026. And the question, rhetorically, that must be asked is why? What was so different about this case that merited this type of secrecy before the arrest of the sole suspect, during his prosecution, and for many months after he pled guilty? As tragic as the events of November 13th, 2022 were, the truth of the matter is that unalivings happen all too frequently in the United States. And there are regular cases where perpetrators are arrested and they are tried, where cases aren't closed to the extent that this one was, and certainly not continued to be closed after the sole suspect is put behind bars for life. We're going to continue to monitor the docket and report back to you if perhaps this coming week will be the week when documents that were long ago approved for release will finally hit the docket. Until next time, this is Kathy. Thank you for joining us here today.